So today we're joined by Damon Gameau, who is an incredibly successful filmmaker. You might know him from his films That Sugar Film or 2040. And this year he's giving the keynote address down at Screen Forever on the Gold Coast. Thanks so much for joining us, Damon.
Pleasure.
Damon, obviously, you've made some amazing movies, in particular, obviously, That Sugar Film and 2040 as well. Could you talk a little bit about your journey into filmmaking and how it all started for you?
Started out from an actor's perspective. So I finished NIDA in 1999 and thought I wanted to be an actor, and had some really great experiences when I graduated, and particularly two spring to mind. And one was with Rolf Tahir doing The Tracker with David Gopal, and then I did a film called Ballabo with Rob Connolly, and both those films just felt really meaningful and like they had a purpose to them, and they were just a really rich experience. And I really held on to those and wanted to tell more stories like that. And I think working with people like Rob and Rolf, they really encouraged me to make my own stories rather than just sort of relying on hoping to get cast in a good one. So that really kickstarted. I made a short film, very short film, like a little cutout animation in 2011, and entered that to Tropfest, and it won Tropfest. And that really, I think, gave me a kick up the backside to say, no, your style and tone is resonating with people. People do want to watch it. And just to be at that, something like Tropfest and feel 300,000 people kind of watch your film and then respond to it was a pretty intoxicating feeling. So that really sort of propelled me into making more films. But again, I wanted to make films that, I guess, that had significance, and I learned how potent storytelling can be and how underused it is as a tool for change.
And of course, it'd be remiss of me not to mention Regenerating Australia, which is your recent short film, which is playing at Screen Forever as well. You toured the film in 2022. How's the reception been to it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting model where we kind of did an extensive interview process with people, asking them what kind of country they want to live in by 2030 in Australia, and then put together this film based on that feedback. So it was very much a collective vision for the country, and then partnered with different philanthropic groups, NGOs, to take this film on the road, but take it with a considerable fund, like a multi-million-dollar fund, that communities could see the film, and if they resonated with a particular solution that they thought was appropriate for their region, they could apply for some funding. So there were grants of anywhere from 250, to 50, whatever it took. And they're about to get announced at the end of May. And there's 45 sort of projects, or 42, I think, that have emerged from that process that are really interesting and regenerative in their thinking, that the solutions and the benefits go back to community or back to the environment, and just not thinking in the same sort of extractive way that we have. And so it's been a really interesting exercise. We've had that mapped by Monash University just to sort of measure the results and see how it works, and already had a couple of other countries reached out to us, or people in countries saying, look, we'd love to do a Regenerating Ukraine or Regenerating America, and use that same format of using a story with a vision and then pathways to help people create that vision. So it's been an interesting process, and I think now we've had almost 600 screening requests, or it's played at different councils and corporations and schools in the last year, and we still get about 10 requests a week. So it's been a really interesting exercise in using film as an agent for change.
And it's so interesting because I remember you did a similar thing with 2040 as well, in taking it around and road showing it, and people could request to have a screening as well. So it's also interesting, I suppose, at your work, and then you look at something like Greenhouse by Yoast as well. And both of those movies have really tangible things that people can engage with outside of the actual film itself. Do you think that's something that more filmmakers should explore, building out the experience of a film outside of just in the cinema?
Well, I guess it just depends on people's level of understanding where we're actually at, ecologically or socially. I think, like I said before, that storytelling is so underutilized as a tool for change. And really, it's the only way we're going to create change is by shifting values and highlighting the things that are going on. And we need filmmakers to do that. But what can often happen is that you show people that, and it either overwhelms them or scares them or provides them with hope. But if you don't then give them the tools to transform that emotion into action, we all know you can lose steam very quickly in this world, and you're scrolling your Instagram and 10 minutes later, it doesn't have as much significance as it might have when you watch the film. So that's why we create these impact campaigns to capture that moment when people finish the film and go, right, I want to do something about that. And then we offer up lots of ways that they can do that. So yeah, my hope is that more and more filmmakers do that, but more importantly, they understand how important their role is in this critical moment for us as a species, that we make so many stories that often distract and divert people away from the very issues that we need to be confronting. So, by telling stories that sort of wake people up to this stuff or move them emotionally so they will enact, it is something that I really, really want more filmmakers to do. That's what I'll be talking about at the conference.
And, I remember we actually did an interview for 2040 with you in a small community garden up on the north side of Brisbane. And I was interested, it's a few years now since that film came out. How, looking back on that, how you found its impact to be, and was it everything you hoped it to? Has it done everything you hoped it to do?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it's probably gone beyond that. I think we had such a remarkable response to the impact campaign. We've had almost 2 million kids that have been taught the curriculum materials. We've raised almost $5 million just through climate solutions from people seeing the film and giving money, and farmers have been able to, transform their landscapes through Regen Ag. Girls have been mentored online. It's just been, again, really strong evidence of how potent a story can be, that people did respond to that and then wanted to take action off the back of it. So that really was the main motivation to then make Regenerating Australia, because of all the learnings that we got from 2040. And not just that, just, the amount of governments that have screened the film, the most bizarre Q&As I've zoomed into of, government figures or world leaders that were watching the film and then wanting to discuss it afterwards and see the plausibility and what some of those solutions were doing. So again, it's very surreal, but again, this is what stories can do. They can open up extraordinary opportunities and get you to meet or change the minds of people that can change the world. That's what stories can do. So that's been a wonderful learning experience, and I've had some conversations with people and leaders I never thought I'd have.
And it's interesting also, you touched on it earlier, but even now you're talking about solutions, and I think that a lot of your work is really positive and really, touches on those things that something like, I've been watching recently Extrapolations, this big budget sort of thing that I suppose also touches a little bit on what you do in terms of extrapolating out the impacts of climate change in the future, but it misses that piece about what we can do about it and that positivity. And is that something important in your work? You really want to give people hope?
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate one, because hope, comes in many different forms, and I don't want to sell hopium, which is the misleading hope, but it's got to be grounded in some kind of legitimacy and muscular optimism, which is increasingly hard. I mean, the world's changed even since I wrote 2040. Like, we've invested trillions of dollars in expanding fossil fuels even since I wrote that film, when I hoped we'd go the other way. So yes, but I think it's important that our media, our social media in particular, the way that our algorithms are engineered, are all for outrage and doom, and that sells, and that gets people scared, and they stay online, and it's all that attention economy. So the stories of what we can do and the wonderful things that communities are doing don't cut through, or very rarely get through. So we do need to tell more of those stories, because all is not lost. And, 2.1 degrees warming is much better than 2.5 degrees of warming. So any action we take right now does matter significantly. So the more we can just keep people on the tracks and not paralyze them with fear, make them switch off and just think, oh, it's all too hard and too existential, I'm just going to binge watch another show and drink some more beer. I get it. But if we keep losing people to that, we really are stuffed. So we've got to find different ways and strategies of getting people off the couch and contributing to building a better world for future generations.
And I suppose finally, you're coming down the screen forever, or coming up the screen forever. And yeah, that's probably, it's not the usual place, I suppose, that you're not speaking to an audience directly. You're speaking to filmmakers and producers and writers and all of that. Why do you think that's important? And I suppose also, what are you going to talk about?
I think it's what I touched on before about the importance of stories, that we all tell stories to ourselves. We tell collective stories. Each brand tells a story, but then we inhabit these collective stories that we're not even aware of. And the system that we live in is a very large collective story. And the only way we're going to change that and shift the values is through filmmakers and storytellers and artists. And so there's an incredible potency in that. And like I said, if we keep just making shows for profit to distract people, we're going to fly off the cliff. And we're going to fly off the cliff with people numbed out, just zoned into another superhero movie. But if we can get more and more storytellers and filmmakers to understand the situation and to use their great skills to enlighten people, to inspire people, to motivate people to change through emotion and evocative stories, we've just got a much better chance of pulling this off. So I guess I'm looking forward to that call to action, to that group of people that might not have thought of themselves or what role they could play in this situation. We think, well, I don't install solar panels, or I don't grow food, or I don't have an electric car. What else can I do? Well, actually, maybe your biggest superpower is your storytelling ability. And what are you doing with that superpower?
Amazing. Well, looking forward to it, and looking forward to seeing you down at Screen Forever.
I better write it now. I didn't realize it was a keynote. I just thought it was like a casual conversation.
Casual chat.
I'm better think about what I'm going to say now.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, thanks so much, Damon. Thanks for your time.
Good to see you again. I'll see you in another 3 years.
Yeah.